Hello and welcome. We're broadcasting from the Thomas K. McKeon Center for Creativity, and I'm your host, Corey D. Taylor. Our guest today is entertainment producer Gary Good, so stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. We are here with entertainment producer Gary Good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing real well. So how's it been going?
It's been going great.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you're originally from Oklahoma, or are you from somewhere else? Are you originally
I was
from?
born in Oklahoma City.
Okay. Oklahoma City, and then your family has a rich history in the music and entertainment business. So tell me a little bit about that, because I understand that your dad was a big band leader. Your mom was a big band vocalist. So give me a little bit of history about that so our viewers would know what is actually big band. What is all that about?
Big band is the Glenn Miller, the big band style, In the Mood, and that kind of music. My dad had the big band orchestra. My mom, actually she answered an ad in the Oklahoman. My dad placed for a singer, and she answered the ad, and she got the job and the band leader.
Wait a minute. This is amazing, because in Oklahoma, yes, there's a rich music culture, but we had some guests that came on last week, and they were a husband and wife duo, and it's like kind of this whole like organic chemistry thing. So you're saying that your dad needed a band singer, and your mom answered the ad, and then they just basically fell in love and produced you.
That's right. That's right. I'm a production of that great duo there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I grew up in music. My dad had his office at the house, and they rehearsed, and they had piano at the house. So like they'd be sitting around the piano working on songs, and I just grew up with that all around me. The record collections they had, the Sinatra and the Basie and Ellington and Ella Fitzgerald and all that. It's what I grew up around.
And so how much, as a band leader, how much travel did your dad and your mom have to do to do performances and stuff?
Well, basically, my dad traveled. He was born in the East. His father was from Italy and his mother from Sweden, and they settled in West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and that's where he was born. And he started traveling to the East Coast, and he played accordion. And
Wow.
he was known at that time as Blackie.
Wait, Blackie?
Yeah, he had a long Italian name. His name was Amato Guariglia.
Wow.
And so rather than make people try to say that, he had jet black hair. So he was just known as Blackie. And so he traveled around the country playing accordion on various radio shows. Ended up in Kansas, and there was a musical family duo named Kenny and Louise Driver, and they had a group called the Serenaders. And they met my dad on a radio show in Kansas, and or maybe it was Missouri. And they called him and said, hey, there's a job at WKY Radio in Oklahoma City. Why don't you come and apply for it? So my dad came to Oklahoma City, got the job, and was on live radio with the Serenaders and various other local groups, and settled here. And met my mom, started the orchestra, worked at WKY, was on the very first TV show on WKY. And rather than travel all over the country, they settled here. So my dad played Oklahoma mostly.
Okay.
Some in Texas, some in the surrounding states, but mostly in Oklahoma.
About what years was that?
In the 40s.
Yeah, and so for our viewers who don't know, because we do have some young viewers, radio used to be the big thing back then. It wasn't just television, because, we had Technicolor and all that stuff, and television was still relatively new at the time, but radio was the big thing. So he traveled all over the country, and so would he be on like radio spots and, singing live on radio, playing live radio with different bands? How was that?
They did live radio. TV didn't hit here till 1949.
Wow.
WKY was the first TV station, and he was on that show. But radio was the thing, and they did live radio. So like there'd be a microphone here, and the musicians would be gathered around the microphone, and they would have various radio shows, and then they'd go to live music. And if they made a mistake, they just made a mistake.
Back then, it was, if you make a mistake, yeah, you made a mistake, but hopefully it wasn't a big mistake because there were no really do-overs. You know, it was just live. So basically, your dad came here and he was on television then, and he was part of pioneering, helping to pioneer, you know, entertainment television sound like it, where they're playing live instruments. And so was his band on live television as well?
Yes.
Wow. And your mom was on as well?
Yes.
Wait, did you ever get to go to the studio when they...
I went to the studio all the time. I grew up with Danny Williams and all those people at Channel 4. You know, it was just like everyday thing to me. I was backstage and I would watch a lot of the live shows. My brother and sister, my sister's younger. She wasn't quite there at the beginning, but yeah, I mean, it was like our playground.
So as a little kid watching your mom and your dad and they're on TV, and here it is, TV is this new thing here in Oklahoma. What type of, can you recall, what was the feeling like of, watching that? It probably seemed like it would have been surreal. What was that feeling like?
I was told that I walked around the TV to look behind to see where they were, because it was surreal. It was the new thing, and I was just a tot. But TVs, you can look in the old magazines, TVs, they didn't know where to put them in the house because homes didn't really have a spot. They had the radio spot.
Correct.
And so you could see newspaper articles and you know, the Home and Gardens or whatever those magazines were, where to put this thing.
So now your dad and your mom, they're on TV. So when did you actually kind of get the bug? Because I understand too that you were a band leader as well.
Right.
You followed in your dad's footsteps. So when did you get the bug to say, man, dad's doing this, mom doing this, I might as well join the family business?
I really wasn't thinking that. We had, as I said, a piano in the house always, and instruments around. We were never pushed into it, but I didn't go to the piano much. I turned over the trash can.
And banged on the trash can?
Beat on the trash can. So I ended up being a drummer.
Wow.
I did play trumpet early on in junior high and part of high school, but I shifted to the drums. And I really didn't plan on following their footsteps. I went to CSU, Central State at the time, and I was majoring in business and business management. I did have a minor in music, but there along the way, my dad was a big agent. He was the big booking agent in Oklahoma. He did all the contracting for the big shows at the Civic Center, Hello Dolly, and all those productions. He would supply the musicians, along with his big band and several bands that he would book. One day he came to me and he said, why don't you handle these rock bands? They're driving me crazy. So I went and I had some business cards printed that said rock bands.
Wow.
And that was the beginning. I was in college and I started passing my cards around and I started booking bands for frat parties.
Wow.
Back then. And while I was going to school, I got in the band at the same time. So I started while I was in college, and during that process, over those 4 years while I was at Central State, UCO, I got so busy that I just shifted and went right into my business because I was booking lots of different bands. I was in my own band, and I was totally immersed, and I didn't really plan that. It just happened. The music and business in school really helped me to kind of fine-tune how to do that. And then, of course, watching my dad, I had a great role model.
Man, your dad sounded like he was an amazing person when because he was really, like, for me, when I hear about people coming in the 40s and he was big on radio, and then he comes here and he's doing, live television, and your mom's doing live television, but then also he's going behind the scene and he's producing and making things happen. So with that being said, I want the audience to know, our viewers per se, a lot of times people hear about promoters and then they hear about producers, and you are an entertainment producer versus a promoter. So explain a little bit about the differences and, you do.
It's pretty simple. And a lot of people call me concert promoter, and that's okay. But the difference is a promoter is going to take a venue and rent that venue, whether it's the Ford Center, the Civic Center, or a music hall, the Zoo Amphitheater, wherever. and they're going to take that venue and book an act, and they're going to pay for that and hope that they sell enough tickets to make a profit.
Okay.
That's a short version.
Right.
I did one of those, and I did a few smaller ones, but I did one at the Civic Center, a Blood, Sweat, and Tears concert, and I actually had a partner that was a silent partner that was raising money, and I went through that whole process, and it's grueling, and you really have to thrive on that kind of action. I didn't really want to worry about the box office. My passion was for the music and for putting it together and watching that audience enjoy it, and not with having to count money at the box office. So my clients are generally corporate or festivals where the crowd's just going to be there. My job is to make sure that I put the right band or entertainer in front of that crowd, and then take care of all the
back end stuff.
Yeah, the sound, the lights, the production, transportation, hotel. I just handle all of that and make sure everything comes off without a hitch.
And you've been doing this for how long now?
Well, I started doing that while I was playing in my band. I was booking, groups like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and a lot of the old groups like the Coasters and the Drifters and the Platters, and worked with a lot of those groups early on.
Wow.
And then as time went on, I did bigger shows, and Natalie Cole with Tiger Woods tournament. I did that in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the Zoo Amphitheater, not the Zoo Amphitheater, but Frontier City. I did all those shows for several years out there, and a lot of the corporate shows, like for the hospitals. And
now wait a minute. You just said the Drifters, the Coasters. You said I did some of those shows early on, and then went on to bigger shows. But in my mind, now being a lover of music, if you told me you were putting together production for the Drifters and the Coasters and all of these different groups, to me in my mind that would be a big thing to be doing. But you saying you're going on and you're doing even bigger shows now. So your stuff is not just limited to Oklahoma. You're all over the country.
yes.
What about, and are you international as well? Are you doing some stuff abroad?
We are.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I had a client that was doing a destination trip for employees and also their clients in Mexico, Puerto Vallarta.
Wow.
And so I booked Herman's Hermits, Peter Noon, Herman's Hermits there for that. And I went to that and totally produced it in the hotel there in Puerto Vallarta. So Mexico. Bermuda, I had another corporate client that was doing a destination event in Bermuda, and I took Casey and the Sunshine Band there and produced the whole show there at that event. Virgin Islands, Mary Wilson from the Supremes, we did a show. We actually left St. Thomas and did a cruise and did a show out in the waters for a corporate client.
But I believe you're the first entertainment producer, like not the television or the radio, or music, but you're producing events, producing venues. And a lot of times, our show is really about helping people to understand the different aspects of different genres, whether it be, music or whether it's film and things of that nature. So you have a totally different outlook on entertainment than the record producer or the film producer. So what is that like for you? It's obvious that you like it, but what is that like for you to do that on a daily basis?
What I like about it is it's doing what I love, for one thing. It's involved with music and entertainment, which I just really have a love for. But it also, when I started my band, I was setting up the band. I was plugging in the amps. I was moving the equipment. I was doing all the things. I was going through the kitchens at the hotels. And I did all those things. So from the ground up, I learned the business. And then when I started booking the larger acts, I would get comments from some of those groups like, we haven't had people take care of us quite this good lately, and commenting on how I took care of details. And so the difference is that I really have a broad view of the business, and I'm really client-based. So when a client calls me, I'll have clients call and they'll say, we want to look at so-and-so group. And I'll start asking questions, and by the time I'm finished looking at all those answers, I say to the client, you might want to look at some of these groups.
Right.
Because maybe they are looking towards something that they personally like, but after I hear about their audience, not so much. And so sometimes it's a gentle guiding, because if they are really adamant about what they want, it's a little delicate. But my job is to make sure that it works. And if they're going down a road that I think is not necessarily going to work, then I feel it's my responsibility for the client to say, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And here's some thoughts. Here's some ideas.
So let me ask this question. In your experience, like, who was like the best entertainers some of the best? I know you don't want to just say one, but who was some of the best entertainers that you had the opportunity to work with?
Wow. That's really tough.
The top of your list.
That's really tough. You know, I did a 50th birthday party in Denver, and it was in a backyard, 15-acre backyard, but a big
Wow.
event for a corporate client, and we had Don Henley. And basically, it was like the Eagles show.
Wow.
And that was a tremendous show. Doobie Brothers, also in Colorado, that was a corporate client up in the mountains, and it was just gorgeous, and everything just gelled. Three Dog Night is a great group.
Wow.
There's so many really, really good entertainment groups. And you know, getting back to guiding the client, there are some that don't have what they used to have.
Correct.
And part of my job, and I get plugged into the market, we have other producers and agents, talent buyers around the country, and I network with them.
Correct.
And now on Facebook, we have a private page where we talk back and forth. And we say, hey, have you heard so-and-so lately? How are they doing? So we know if a certain performer who used to be great isn't so great anymore. So that's also part of our job, is to make sure that we present something that really is quality.
When you bring people to town, you do these events, you also have a place. And what is the place called? Because I know Mumford and Sons, they had come through, and you know, you got memorabilia and all this stuff. What is that place called?
Well, you know, you're fast forwarding a ways, because my career has been ever changing.
Correct.
One of the things that I really love about it is that no day is the same. You know, it's always different. I moved to Guthrie about 7 years ago, and of course Guthrie is almost a suburb of Oklahoma City. It's so close, so I've had offices in both places. But I bought this venue that used to be the Guthrie Amphitheater.
Wow.
And it's actually on over an acre downtown Guthrie. And within this compound, there's the old amphitheater that's been turned into a home, a residence, and then next door is a 1910 concrete building that we turned into a retreat. So it sleeps like between 10 and 15 people. And then we have a bed and breakfast right up the street from there. And that comprises the Guthrie Retreat. Well, when I got a hold of this place, I shifted it back, so there's actually music happening at the old amphitheater now again.
Wow.
And we've had Leona Mitchell perform twice, international people like Rick Price from Australia, Anthony Snape, Cristiana Pecoraro from Italy, concert pianist. And so we're bringing music back into that space. So that is a venue, and actually I kind of turned into a promoter in that respect, which wasn't my intention, but it's my place, you know.
Wow.
So we present things there, and I do kind of shift back into that title, I suppose.
The promoter.
But see, also, like Mumford and Sons did not perform at my facility. They performed at Cottonwood Flats, which is a quarter of a mile from there. But they stayed on the compound. They stayed at the Guthrie Retreat in Magnolia Moon for 4 days.
Wow.
And basically it's just a kind of a cocoon that they were able to just relax in between what else they were doing.
Now, do you get a lot of that if people come through town, or was that like a first time deal that like they hear about your place and they're like, oh, we're going to come here, we're going to go perform, but they may perform somewhere else, but they come there to relax and retreat, like you said?
It's happening. It is happening. They weren't the first. The first celebrity that we had as a guest was Paul Williams, singer-songwriter, Academy Award-winning songwriter, Grammy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he stayed there for 2 days. The Gatlin brothers were there. Larry Gatlin stayed at the Magnolia Moon for 3 days. and Kathy Mattea, of course Leona Mitchell, Vince Gill. When he was at the Bluegrass Festival, his group hung out there all day and picked on their instruments.
So what is this like? I mean, cause like, when people hear about like the entertainment business, they always hear the lights flashing and the cameras flashing, but you're so ingrained in the entertainment business, but you're like really behind the scenes and more of concierge and taking care of and making sure people are being taken care of and done well. How does that feel? And I know you love to do it, but for our viewers, when they're listening to this, I want them to know that like, if they don't want to be the singer or the songwriter or the actor or the TV producer, there is other things they can do in the entertainment business, which you're doing.
And again, I've done several roles in the business, and that's exactly right. If anybody really has a love for entertainment music, whether it's in the actual music or film or otherwise, anything in the arts, and they want to be involved, you don't have to be an artist to be in the arts. I mean, I have an art gallery in Guthrie, and I am not an artist. I can barely sign my name. But I've been on the Oklahoma City Arts Commission for several years, and I'm still a commissioner there, and we oversee public art in Oklahoma City. And you can do a profession in various ways, and there's lots of different avenues. ACM at UCO in Bricktown, they have various programs where you can go there, and if you want to be a keyboard player, if you want to run the recording studio, there's classes and courses for all that.
Wow. And so in your travels and everything that you're doing now, man, this sounds like it's really, really exciting work. So I already asked you who was the best people to work with. What was a challenge? Don't mention the name, of course, but was there ever a challenge in this that was a real big challenge and you were like, oh man, like,
Yes,
dude, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing still.
There have been several challenges, and I thinking back in my school days, I think I should have taken a little bit more diplomacy classes or something, because being an agent or a producer, which I am both, you're in between, So I've had situations where I have a very powerful corporate client and a very powerful entertainer who've achieved,
high levels of success.
High levels, each of them, and both have their own ego, and I'm in between them. And no, and I'm not going to name any acts, but I've been in a situation where I really had to defuse situations
with high-powered people on both sides.
With high-powered people, where the artist could have walked off had they wanted to, because they had plenty of money and they didn't really need that particular night, and the talent buyer could do the same thing. And so that's the kind of, level that it can get to. And to me, it's no different than going across the street here in Tulsa or in Oklahoma City and working with a client there. There's a buyer and there's an artist, and it's just at a different level. And I've done it, locally, and I've done it around the country. And it really is just part of my job is to bridge between. And I truly am a diplomat, and I call myself in the business a problem solver, a resource person. People ask me what I do, and those are words that I use all the time.
Now, with you doing all of this, and that's great, because a lot of people don't understand that when you're in that entertainment sector, there is a lot of negotiations that go on, because like you said, you can have these high-powered people with, that's a high-powered act and a high-powered corporation, but then you can have the prima donnas who think they deserve more than what. Have you ever bumped into a situation like that who
of course.
They really were not worth, but you're trying to like, look, you need to do this. What was that like? How was that end of negotiation?
One of the reasons that you need a good producer, talent buyer these days, because you can find any act. You can get on the internet, you can find anybody that's out there performing. You can find their agent, their manager, and get to them if they'll call you back.
Right.
But What happens after you get to them is the secret. And what I am really good at, and talent buyers that really are good at their trade, when you get the contract for a job, there may be 25, 35 pages of contract writer after that first page that says, here's how much you're paying and here's how much. The contract writer is really intricate, and you have to be able to go through that. And that can mean a difference in paying 50% or 100% more for a show than you should.
Now, is the writer where they say I want like breath mints or Skittles? I mean, is that included
covers
in the
all
writer?
of that. There's the catering part of the writer. There's production part of the writer.
Wow.
They may want like 4 Super Trooper spotlights in a small room, and they may have that on their writer. And if somebody gets that writer and doesn't know better, they'll hire 4 Super Trooper spotlights to be in a room that can't really handle them. So you have to really know how to read the writer and how to talk to the production manager for the group and say, hey, we're at the Marriott, we're in a ballroom that seats X amount of people, here's what we need to do, and then we hammer it out and see what they will accept.
Wow.
And so it's a huge difference, and some of the systems that they request you can't even get in various cities. So if you stick strictly to the writer, you may be going several hundred miles trucking equipment in that you really don't have to have.
This show, Oklahoma Up Close, is about helping our viewers to understand what it takes to be successful in anything that they do in life. In about 10 seconds, give us your take of what it would take to be successful.
In this business?
In any business.
Well, in any business is really learning the trade. And in many cases, that's going through a university, going through a school, whether it be Votech, whatever it is, and learning a trade. If you're passionate about what it is that you're doing, you'll want to know everything about it. And once you become an authority, you're a problem solver. You know, you are a resource person, and people will seek you out for what you know. And if you've selected your trade well, if you love what you do, you can say like I can, I've had a blessed career and I'm still having a great time.
Well, Gary Good, thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed our show today. I would like to thank our guest, Gary Good, for coming. Think about this. Change is inevitable, but your attitude towards that change, it is optional. Until next time, think about it.